Thank you, Gene, for your introduction. I should first maybe recognize the committee that really put this together. To me, they're like in the Apple Store, the Genius Bar of event planning. So please, the committee members are listed on the programs, yes? So thank you all. Please give them a round, please. So good morning and welcome to everyone here. This is an event that's been a year in the making, and lots of meetings, lots of detail. The devils are always in the details. But my name's Dean Peters. I'm president of the Hellenic Preservation Society, and it's my honor to welcome our now good friend, internationally known Greek-American artist Theodora Miller. So welcome, Theodora. Ms. Miller has adopted a very unique approach to her creative artwork, expressing her creativity through the characters of the Greek alphabet. Well, I don't know, I guess creativity is one thing. I never thought of doing anything like that, but I think it's great. So to me, at least, this is a creative pursuit of classic and classical proportions. And I'm privileged to be part of this event. So, and thank you all for being here. So I'm going to talk for a few minutes about alphabet. In modern times, we take our alphabets for granted, for those who even think about it, you know, unless you're going to school or something, you know, your letters, nobody thinks about their alphabets. But let's go back 3,000 years before there were any such things. Back then there were some very early writing systems, such as what the Mesopotamians had, and the Sumerians developed their cuneiform writing, and that word actually comes from the Latin, where they used wedges in wet clay to make little markings that were served as their written language. And the word itself comes from the Latin word for a wedge, sort of, which is the kind of marks they made in the clay. And then there were the Egyptian hieroglyphs. And that's a Greek word, and it means sacred carvings. And these were extremely complex systems, both the cuneiform and the hieroglyphs, and required their users to memorize hundreds and hundreds of symbols just to communicate. So a picture might, a symbol might include an entire word or an entire thought. Well, and to express a complete idea was kind of a cumbersome thing. And these early writing systems were used for, especially for cuneiform, were used almost as much for accounting as they were for actual speech and literacy. And in the case of the hieroglyphs, they were geared very much and very attractive to the eye, but they were not geared to the phonetics of the tongue. So these systems were very rigid and inflexible, and it was tough to get across any level of subtlety or nuance in communicating with these systems. And then along came a brilliant idea, and it wasn't from the Greeks. The Hellenes were a seafaring people, and as such, they were in frequent contact with trading partners such as the Phoenicians, and theirs is the brilliant idea and they hailed from what is like modern-day Lebanon, that region, and their idea was an alphabet in which individual symbols represented sounds called phonemes instead of complete ideas. So the Phoenicians actually had a 22-letter alphabet, and it was a veritable toolbox of literal and lingual building blocks, and it was much simpler, it was linear, and it looked like a modern alphabet, except for one thing. It had no vowels. None of the Semitic alphabets had vowels. That doesn't mean those who used those languages didn't use vowels, they did, but their vowels were not part of the alphabet. So the scholars have a word for these kinds of alphabets, and oddly enough, it requires vowels to say the word. It's actually an acronym, and they're called abjad. It's an Arabic derivative, and So you need two A's to say that word for a vowel, for an alphabet that doesn't use vowels. So, so Hebrew, Aramaic, Phoenician, and Arabic were all abjads. Well, the first thing that came to my mind was if you're a Wheel of Fortune fan, don't play it with a Semitic alphabet because you won't be able to buy a vowel to be able to solve the puzzle. So, but these vowel-less alphabets worked well enough for the Semitic languages, but to the emerging Hellenic culture, which was bursting at the seams with creativity and a very fertile intellect, more was needed. So the Hellenes applied their fertile thinking to the brilliance of the Phoenician alphabet, which first appeared like 3,100 years ago, 1100 BC. And 300 years later, around 800 BC, the Greeks did something that was equally brilliant. And it's like, when you hear something about it, it's like, why didn't I think of that? Well, what they did was to recycle some of the unused Phoenician characters from the consonants from the Phoenician alphabet and turn them into vowel sounds and put them in the emerging Greek alphabet. They didn't know it at the time, but the simple addition of 7 vowels to their alphabet was to form the bedrock of written and spoken communication for all of Western civilization that started back then and all the way through to the present, even today. And I'm sorry, I just messed up the image on the screen too. Anyway, so let me be clear. The Greeks didn't invent vowels. They simply codified them in a formal way and integrated them into their official alphabet. And I tried to think of a suitable metaphor for what this meant to the world of writing and letters and language. And all I could come up with was like a sort of a subsonic flight, breaking the sound barrier and going faster than the speed of sound. These are barriers, and there was Mach 1 and Mach 2, and the net effect of vowels in the alphabet turned out to be even more like achieving escape velocity, using the technology of rocketry to even escape the gravitational pull of the Earth. So meanwhile, back on planet Earth, the Greeks added 7 vowels to their alphabet: alpha, epsilon, eta, iota, omicron, upsilon, and omega. Seven letters, 7 characters that were connected on either end often enough by consonant sounds. And these made Greek writing more precise and accessible, and no longer exclusive to the scribes and the elites, who often held their noses up way high and had their palms out for payment. So words became clearer, literacy became far more accessible to average people. The written and spoken language became far more versatile and also and it became reproducible. So nuanced language became possible, and ever so importantly, they could not only reproduce it in writing, but because the vowels had certain sounds that went along with them, it was everybody said a word the same way. So the voweled alphabet, as a boon to education and educators, was simply immeasurable. There was no standard by which to measure the impact, but it was significant. So clear vowel notation allowed precise recording of long and complex arguments, which Western philosophy absolutely depended on. And without written and oral precision, the preservation and transmission of these ideas, not only across the timeline, not only across generations, but even over the next mountain range or to the next island, it made that all possible. And these texts that were developed back then later deeply influenced Roman, Renaissance, and modern European culture. So let's jump ahead just a few hundred more years. And the now accepted Greek alphabet made civic participation more transparent. And in what was to become democratic Athens, and this is still a couple of hundred years before Alexander the Great and 500 years before Jesus shows up. but laws were written, and in democratic Athens, laws were written and publicly displayed. People could actually read them, and they all said the same thing, and they all read it the same way. And citizens could read the decrees of their government and participate politically, and public debate could thrive, and it did. So the Greek alphabet was adopted and adapted by the Etruscans and then the Romans. And from there, it evolved into the Latin alphabet, which I think had, it's not 26 characters. I don't think there's a J, and I don't think there's W in the Latin alphabet. But from there derived the English, Spanish, French, German, Portuguese, Polish, Czech, Croatian alphabets, and even further into Cyrillic-based alphabets of Russia, Bulgaria, Serbia, Belarus, and the Ukraine. So without the Greek vowels, the writing system behind Western civilization would look very different indeed than it does today. And this writing system engendered and became the backbone of Western intellectual history. So it's been my pleasure to offer you this backdrop of Greek alphabet, and I hope it will add some historical and cultural perspective to Ms. Miller's remarks today and today's workshop. And I humbly thank you for your time and attention, and I hope you'll enjoy the rest of our program, because now the fun begins. It has been a year in the planning, and we're delighted to have you all here to share it. So thank you for your time. Now I need my glasses. Today we welcome our guest of honor, Greek-American artist Theodora Miller. Her artistic journey began not too long ago, compared to my standards, but taken quite a few twists and turns since her humble upbringing in Central Florida. Her love of art began when she was a young girl. As the daughter of a Greek immigrant, she had the good fortune of spending many childhood summers in Greece, in the motherland, with her extended family, while her parents worked back home in the U.S. She mentioned that was back in those days, you can get on the plane with your 6-year-old brother and be left alone until you got to where you were going. But the memories have remained a lifelong inspiration for her in her life and her artwork. Theodora's parents insisted on education as a priority, and Theodora excelled, earning a presidential scholarship and becoming the first person in her family to graduate from college. She learned the importance of a strong work ethic, the value of philotimo, and a brave entrepreneurial spirit from her parents. And those early years, Greek summers, sparked her quest for travel and adventure, becoming an American Field Service exchange student to Denmark during high school and a college semester abroad in Spain. How fortunate you were. So as the years passed, her childhood passion for art took a back seat as she attended college, built a career and a family, and she spent 30 years in leadership positions in financial services and nonprofit organizations, working her way up the ladder, all the while raising her 3 children. So Theodora's path took an abrupt turn with a traumatic brain injury. Her recovery required long periods of isolation, but through painting, she discovered a path to healing, hope, and a renewed sense of purpose. Ultimately, she traded the boardroom for brushes, many of which are on these tables. And lost my place here, sorry. Yes, transforming her pain into a vibrant life of creativity and connection. So drawing from her Greek heritage and personal healing, Theodora creates art, ceramics, textiles, and experiences that celebrate beauty, resilience, and life's sacred moments. She is known for her meditative painting style, intuitive brushstrokes, and layered textures. And we'll see some of that today, I think. Her creations are featured in corporate and healthcare collections and treasured by art lovers around the world. Last fall, her ceramic vessel exhibited in Paris during Design Week. And as her creativity knows no limits, she launched the Ancestral Collection, her debut line of painterly fabrics and wallpapers. Most recently, she is featured as a Movers and Makers in the spring issue of Traditional Home magazine, in which editor Ella Schulte describes the new collection as, quote, celebrating the beauty of travel brought home, close quote. In addition, Theodora is appointed by the Virginia Commission for the Arts as a teaching artist for the Commonwealth. A passionate traveler and a cultural explorer, Theodora encourages you to embrace the world with ageless curiosity and play by offering soul-driven workshops and retreats. Theodora resides in Richmond, Virginia, and her spirit dwells on an island in the Aegean Sea. We are excited to have her with us today as she shares her inspirational journey, which stands as a testament to the transformative power of art and ancestry and the strength of spirit to start again. So please give a warm welcome to a warm person and welcome Theodora up to the podium. Thank you.